Hi yogis, I'm Christina Madison and today I'm going to show you a sequence that I love to use for after a long run or leg day. So we're really going to get into every single muscle of the legs. Let's get started. So for today's video, all you're really going to need is a strap and your mat. You really don't even need a strap if you don't have one. You can use a rolled up towel or blanket. You can use a dog leash. You can use a necktie, whatever you have laying around the house that's long and is going to help you reach your legs and your feet. So go ahead and lay back down on your mat. We're going to extend the left leg and we're going to reach the right leg up, flexing the right foot. And we're going to wrap the strap or whatever you have around the arch of the foot. Good. So make sure your bottom foot, the foot is flexed and the left toes are reaching up towards the ceiling, and that you're reaching your right foot up towards the ceiling as well. Now having a micro bend in the knee here, or even like a really big bend in the knee, totally fine, especially if you have super tight hamstrings. So be generous and kind to yourself. Don't force your leg to be straight if your hamstring doesn't want to. We don't want to injure ourselves just for the sake of a stretch. So walk your hands up as high on the strap as you can without hiking your shoulders up towards the ceiling. We want our shoulders to be nice and relaxed down on the floor. And for this first pose, we're just going to lay here and we're going to stretch the hamstrings. So that may mean that you're here. That may mean that you're here. You know, wherever you are, wherever your range is, however much your knee is bent, as long as you're getting a hamstring stretch, that's all that matters. So breathe into this stretch, breathe into the sensation of the hamstring. If having that left leg straight is really uncomfortable for you, you always have the option to bend that left leg. Okay, it just changes the stretch a little bit. So you can play with both and see what feels better. Just explore the pose, figure out what works for you and what feels good in your body. Awesome. And then we're going to take both straps into our right hand, take that left arm out to the side to counterbalance, and then we're going to begin to open up the right leg out to the side as far as feels comfortable for you. So we want to keep that left hip pinned down to the mat. So you can always take your left hand down to that left hip to kind of hold it in place if you need to. But if your left hip starts to peel up off the floor, that probably means you've gone too far stretching through your right leg. So find that happy balance where your left hip stays down and you feel a nice stretch through the inner thigh, through the groin, wherever you feel this stretch. Good. Keeping that left leg active, left toes lifted towards the ceiling. And then think about taking that right hip and moving your right hip down towards the bottom of your mat. Notice how that changed the stretch for you, if at all. One more breath. And then we'll slowly start to bring that right leg back to center. And we're going to switch both straps into the left hand. Take that right arm out as your counterbalance and start to bring the right leg towards the left hip. Good. So we're stretching through the outer portion of the leg now. So the IT band, the outer hip muscles, wherever you feel this stretch, just be gentle with yourself. Try not to overdo it. Find that edge and respect it. So if you find that your breath is starting to become short and shallow, it may mean that you've gone too far. So just back off a little bit so that you can have that nice, deep, long, slow breathing. One more breath here. And then we'll bring that right leg back to center. And you can lower it down. We're going to step the left foot in and step the right foot out. Good. And then we're going to walk our hands up on the strap, lifting the left leg into the air now. Feet are flexed. Good. And again, a bent knee is totally okay here. Don't have to have a straight leg, and we don't have to have the leg totally perpendicular to the floor either. You can be here. You can be here. Wherever your hamstring feels safe and comfortable, but still stretching, hold it there. Relax your shoulders away from your ears. Your shoulders should be nice and heavy down on the mat. Good. As you breathe, you may find that you can deepen the pose a little bit, or you may have reached your max, and that's good too. Just breathe there. Find your edge. Okay, let's take both straps into your left hand. Take your right arm out to the side and begin to open up that left leg. I'm limited by my wall here, but you open as far as you feel comfortable going while keeping that right hip pinned down to the mat. Once you found your edge, make sure your right foot is still flexed, toes reach towards the ceiling. Again, you can bend the knee here if that's more comfortable for you. And then imagine taking that left hip and reaching it down towards the bottom of your mat. Awesome job. One more breath. And then we'll inhale to come back to center. Take both straps into the right hand. Take the left arm out to the side for balance. And then slowly start to bring that left foot over towards the right hip. Feeling into the stretch. Feeling the sensation. If you're a runner, this is probably really tight for you. Those ID bands, they get pretty tight. Calves, I feel this one all the way down, even into my calf. So your body is going to respond to each stretch differently. Your priority is to make sure that you're respecting your edge and that you're not going too far and overstretching. One more breath here. And then we'll inhale to come back up. You can lower the left leg down to the mat and set your strap off to the side. We are done with it. So I'm going to rock and roll to come up to seated. You can do the same, or you can just roll onto your side to come up. And then I'm going to transition onto hands and knees to come into tabletop. So next up is low lunge. So we're going to step that left foot through in between the hands. We want our legs to be emanating from our hips. So your stance should be hips width apart, maybe a little bit wider if you struggle to balance here, if balance is a challenge. And then we're going to walk the hands up onto the left thigh. So we want our left toes pointing straight towards the short end of your mat. We want to stack the left knee over the left ankle and track over the midline of the foot. Square the hips towards the short end of the mat. If your right knee is directly under your right hip, you may not feel very much of a stretch in the hip flexor. So you can always walk that right knee back a little bit further to deepen the stretch through that right hip flexor. Good. And if you like, you can add the arms for a low lunge. You can also have the hands resting down on the thigh or the hips, your choice. Sometimes here I like to actually take my hands onto my hips and press them a little bit lower into the pose. Not dumping into the pose. We don't want to totally dump here. We want to keep pressing into that left foot to keep the thighs engaged, to keep the hamstrings engaged. But that kind of gives me a little bit of an extra stretch. Good. Let's take both hands down to the floor, and we're going to rock the hips back, lifting the left toes up for a little extra bonus hamstring stretch. So we want to keep the hips square, reaching up through the left toes, putting a micro bend in the knee here if you need one. Breathe here. And then we're going to rock back and forth between the two. So we're going to inhale forward into our low lunge, and then we're going to exhale to rock the hips back to our hamstring stretch. Inhaling to low lunge. Exhale, hamstring stretch. One more round. Inhale, low lunge. Exhale, press back, hamstring stretch. Awesome. Let's step that left foot back to our tabletop. We'll switch sides. So step the right foot forward in between the hands, making sure our feet and legs are emanating from the hips, so hips width apart or wider. And then we want to press into the right foot, walking the hands up onto the right thigh. Front knee stacked over the front ankle, tracking over the second and third toe, midline of the foot. Square the hips with the short end of the mat. Good, and if you feel ready, you can add the arms. Maybe this time you want to add a little chest stretch, so taking the hands behind the sacrum, interlacing the fingers, and reaching that fist down towards the floor to broaden through the chest, widening through the collarbones, stretching through the front of the body. Good, and if you want a little bit more of a stretch in your left hip flexor, just remember you can walk that left knee a little further back to get a deeper stretch. Awesome. Let's release the hands down towards the floor, and we're going to rock the hips back, lifting the right toes up for a hamstring stretch. Breathing here. Making sure the hips are square. And then we're going to rock forward into that low lunge. Exhale, press back, hamstring. Inhale, low lunge. Exhale, press the hips back, hamstring stretch. Last one, inhale, low lunge. Exhale, hamstring stretch. Awesome. Let's step that right foot back, coming to tabletop once more. Next, we're coming into downward facing dog. So walk the hands slightly in front of the shoulders. Hands are about shoulder width apart. Fingers are nice and wide. And we're going to tuck our toes under. Inhale, begin to press into the hands and the balls of the feet. Exhale, roll onto the balls of the feet. Lift the knees up. Hips come up and back. I have really bent knees here because I have tight hamstrings. I encourage you to do the same unless you've been practicing your down dog for years and years and years. And you can have straight legs while also maintaining a long low back and spine. So I highly recommend bending the knees a little bit or a lot. You can be here. You can have the knees really bent because we really want to prioritize length in the spine. And then we're going to walk the dog. So we're going to bend one knee, reaching one heel towards the floor and then the other, just alternating between feet, working into the calves and the hamstrings individually on that leg. Good, pressing into the hands, drawing the abs up and in. Good, we'll come back to center, both legs equal, and then we'll lower the knees back down to the mat. Let's come all the way down onto our bellies. We're coming into a quad stretch next. So make sure you're really long through the front side of your body. Give yourself lots of space. Take that left forearm and cross it parallel with the short end of your mat. And then take that right hand, bend the right knee, and reach back for that right foot. So this may be a good opportunity for a strap. If you can't reach your foot and you want to stretch through the quad here, grab your strap and wrap it around your right foot. So I'm going to bend my right elbow, pressing in my right foot towards my seat, getting into a little quad stretch here. Again, making sure you're only going as far as your body feels comfortable going. And then let's release the right leg down, trying not to let it slingshot, but lowering it down nice and slow. Let's take the right forearm across, parallel with the short end of the mat. Bend the left knee, reach around for that left foot. Good, and then let's draw the left foot in towards your seat. Feeling that stretch through the hamstrings. Relaxing the neck and jaw. Relaxing the shoulders. One more breath here. And slowly releasing that right leg back down to the mat. Take the hands underneath the shoulders. Inhale, press up to your tabletop once more. The next pose, my favorite, we're coming into pigeon pose. This is a great run for runners. If you can't do anything else, do pigeon pose. It gets like 4 different muscle groups. So let's take the left knee forward to behind the left wrist. We're going to cross that left shin diagonally across the body, and then we're going to slowly heel toe or walk that right leg back behind you. We want to make sure the right leg is emanating directly from the right hip. So try not to let it be like out to the side, wonky, or crossed like back behind you, because then you're going to be like all weird. So really just like right leg shoots right straight back from the right hip. We want to square our hips towards the short end, the front of our mat. You can inhale to get tall, and then we're going to slowly lower down. This is a great opportunity to use a block, maybe taking a block underneath the forehead. I like to come onto my forearms here so I can keep a long, beautiful spine, still getting all the benefits of the stretch. You can take the forehead all the way down to the floor or onto stacked hands or onto a block like so. So you can really just rest in the pose. If your left hip is elevated off the ground here, like your left hip is kind of like floating in the air, this is also a great opportunity to use a block or like a rolled up blanket or pillow or something and kind of stick it underneath your left seat to support you, bringing the ground to you. And if pigeon pose really isn't working for you and you are just not comfortable at all, you do have the option to take figure 4 pose, which means you'll be down on your back and you'll cross the left ankle over the right knee and thread the hands through to draw the right thigh in towards the chest. It's going to give you the same stretch through the outer hip of the left leg, but without the pressure of the ground. So if that works more and better for you, you always have the option to take figure 4 instead of pigeon. Some people actually call it upside down pigeon pose. Good, so let's walk the hands back in towards the body. We'll tuck the right toes under, lift the right knee up, and then we're going to step the left foot back to plank and then re-lower the knees, transitioning back to tabletop, and we're going to do the other side. So right knee forward behind the right wrist. We're going to walk that right shin diagonally across the body so that the right foot is right about underneath your left hip. Walk that left leg back little by little, finding your edge, finding what feels good for you. So yeah, you can see my right hip is kind of floating off the ground here. So great opportunity for me to wedge a block or a blanket underneath to support me. I'm going to lift my torso up, getting a little stretch here, and then slowly lowering down onto the forearms, resting your forehead on a block, or taking the forehead all the way down on top of stacked hands. Really, we want to make sure our spine is nice and long here. So if your right hip is hiked up a little bit, you probably want to stay on forearms. If your right sit bone comes all the way down to the floor and you're nice and comfortable, then you can fold the upper body forward and rest the forehead down on the mat. It's just really how your body feels in this practice. We don't want to push ourselves too hard, especially in pigeon, because this one has the potential to overstretch if we're not conscious of what our limits are and respecting those. So yeah, we're getting like 4 for 1 in this stretch. We're stretching through the left hip flexor. We're stretching through the right hip. Get a little stretch in the quad, a little stretch in the hamstrings, stretching through the glutes. I mean, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with this pose, which is why I said if you can only do one pose, if you only have time for one, do pigeon. All right, on your next inhale, start to walk the hands back towards the body, and then you can lower down onto your right hip, sweep that left leg around, come to seated. You can do any additional stretches that you would like, or you can take a shavasana if you have time. I hope your legs feel better after your leg day or your long run. Let me know what you think of this video. You can like it, you can subscribe to my channel, you can leave a comment and let me know how you feel after this stretch. And thanks for watching. Namaste.